I caught my cheating wife and her lover at home and turned their lives upside down for revenge. I witnessed everything unfold in slow motion. It's strange how the mind operates. I was being propelled backwards, falling. I caught a glimpse of a blurry figure, then the roof, then my feet and the roof simultaneously. I hit the ground, landing on my upper back first. Excruciating pain, a crunch in the darkness. What a dreadful nightmare. I groggily regained consciousness. My head pounded, my entire torso ached. I had no idea where I was. I lay there for a few seconds before trying to open my eyes. I squinted, seeing only a fluorescent light fixture and ceiling tiles. I closed my eyes again. My body was consumed with pain, each breath, agony. I felt like crying out but remained still, trying to understand what was happening. The first attempt to turn my head made it clear that any movement was unwise. A jolt of pain shot down my spine. I tried to look sideways without moving. Even that minimal movement hurt. Then I heard voices. Was that what woke me? Is he going to survive? A doctor asked. Yes, replied another voice. When do you think he will regain consciousness? Asked the first voice with a tone of concern. He showed signs of waking earlier, but then lost consciousness again. We just need to be patient, said another voice, whom I assumed was the doctor. Considering what happened, he's fortunate. The MRI revealed no cranial bleeding, but there is already some swelling. He definitely has a concussion. We'll need to monitor the potential for further brain swelling. His left arm is broken in one place, both the radius. Judging by the condition of his back, he hit the stairs at shoulder blade level and then slid the rest of the way down. His back is badly bruised. His suit coat protected him from being scraped raw. But it's probably good that he was leaning to his left. Otherwise, the weapon he was carrying might have worsened the injuries. He might have fractured his sacrum or his hip. He ended up resting after hitting the back of his head, which has scrapes and significant bleeding. No stitches were needed. We cleaned and bandaged the wound. I understand he stopped with his feet still on the stairs. He essentially surfed down until his head and shoulders hit the bottom. Voice 1 confirmed this. How he managed not to tumble, I have no idea. I guess he went most of the way down in midair. It was about, or steps, said Voice 1. I didn't count, but I'll need it for my report. So we have no idea when we might be able to talk with him, said the doctor. There was a pause. We're having the woman checked out. She was resisting, but I saw blood on her fingers and wanted to collect evidence before it got washed away. Also, the sufferer had 3 long gouges on his right forearm. Can you tell me if they were made from hand to elbow, or vice versa? Asked another voice. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. The monitor was beeping fast but not accelerating. I heard the curtain pull back and someone fiddling with the tape on my arm. From hand to elbow for sure, the doctor said. Which doesn't make sense considering the direction of his fall. Makes sense from another perspective, said a voice. His right coat sleeve was pushed up to his elbow. I'll confirm with forensics. Can I get a cup of coffee while I make a few calls, Sue? Can you get the officer some coffee? Better make it 2. His partner is here too, said a voice. The curtain closed again. So what do you have? Asked a new voice from behind the curtain. The first voice explained what the doctor said. We have both a man and woman downtown, said the second cop. Their stories match but don't align with witnesses. Lucky we were nearby when the call came. Responding officers barely arrived before us. Glad they could check the sufferer while we examined the scene. Yeah, Voice 1 replied. Did you see the video? Video? The second cop asked. A girl across the landing was showing her parents her new apartment when the shouting started. They recorded a naked man and woman on the landing. The man yelled, "That'll show you your place, you stupid loser." They didn't see what they were looking at down the stairs, but it was clear they had just been having sex, explained Voice 1. Good thing witnesses saw who was there, said the second voice. One called emergency. A young neighbor was next to the sufferer when the first unit arrived, pointing at the guy, saying he pushed him. Don't let him get away. The guy was dressed and running downstairs while the woman stood at the top in a row bawling. They both lied, saying they were innocently visiting when the sufferer attacked and fell over his own feet, said the second voice. Both men laughed. I thought about what I heard. My brain was functioning. Maybe I could turn this around. Would it be wrong to lie? He pushed me down the stairs. I could have died. Let me go back 3 weeks. Judy, my wife, was in the shower and left her phone on the makeup table. It pinged. I looked at it. Hey, sweet cheeks, I want some hot lovemaking. How about tomorrow afternoon? It was from her boss, Mark Danvers. This wasn't the first inappropriate text. A month earlier, I saw a text from him saying, "You looked fine this morning. I want some love soon." Judy covered it up, claiming it was meant for his wife, Julie, whose contact is next to hers. Mark called, apologizing, saying he was trying to spice things up with his wife. Judy laughed it off, and we did too, making love that night. I forgot about it until now. If Mark messed up again, why text his wife about tomorrow? I realized my wife was cheating on me. I thought our relationship was solid, but it wasn't. Judy and I met a few months before graduating college, both business majors. We'd seen each other in classes but never interacted socially. I was the typical nerd, she was the hot chick. We clicked once we got to know each other. I wasn't socially awkward, just not the athletic type usually seen with hot girls. I was 5 feet 8 inches and 145 lbs. My sister and her friends thought I was good looking, but not a stud. I joked about it once, and we all laughed. One day I overheard Judy tell my sister, "Your brother isn't teased, he teases back, and let me tell you, he's got nothing to be embarrassed about." Becky and her friends were embarrassed. Judy wasn't seeking a rich guy. We got by, but we weren't wealthy. Judy's sales covered her business expenses, and I supported us with my sales rep job after graduation. I continued my education to get a CPA and MBA, aiming to set up my own office. This meant working hard, often traveling to service distant accounts. Once I suspected Judy might be cheating, I paid closer attention. Mark and his wife were in their 40s with 3 kids. Judy and I hadn't started a family yet, though I wanted to. We had been discussing her going off the pill to get pregnant, but now I was glad we hadn't. I realized I'd never have a child with Judy. I had looked forward to lovemaking that night, but now I felt different. Judy was getting ready in the shower, knowing I'd start with oral sex when she came out, looking and smelling good. I wasn't interested. I lied about feeling unwell and went to the bathroom. She went to bed, and I stayed up researching how to spy on her phone. It was easier than I thought. I installed a spy app on her phone and downloaded her texts, monitoring her phone. I found that Mark, her boss, was a prolific flirt. They managed to sneak away together a couple of times a week, with flirtatious texts and calls. I saved copies of a particularly graphic phone conversation. I didn't need it to divorce Judy, which I intended to do soon, but I wanted undeniable proof she was cheating. "Let's have sex at your apartment this Thursday when your husband is out of town," Mark asked. "I love bending you over the couch and pounding you from behind." "Quit calling Robert a loser. It's disrespectful," Judy said with a hint of irritation. Mark laughed and started to say something. "Robert is just as large as you, if not larger. You were just too rough." I love that pounding, which is why I keep coming back. "Robert prefers making love, but sometimes I want it rough," Judy continued. "Yeah, you scream when I pound away," Mark chortled. Julie used to love it too, but she says I get too wild. She likes being on top to control the action. "Your guy can't man up like I can. Your jackhammer act is what I want a couple of times a week. Making love is great, and Robert can get rough occasionally, but he stops when I hurt. You don't. My guts are sore, but I love it. I'm in love with Robert, but sometimes I want wild sessions, and if you call him a loser again, you won't get any this week. Wear a rubber or no sex." "Robert and I are planning to have a baby," Judy said firmly. "I hate protection," Mark groaned. "Well, it's that or no sex," Judy said. "And if it breaks, I'm using douche. Afraid my swimmers are better than Robert's," Mark laughed. "Nice save," Judy laughed. "But I can't take the risk," Mark laughed. "All babies look alike at first. He'd be stuck raising my kid if his name is on the birth certificate. Or that'd be funny." "No, they don't. Babies are cute, and he'd have a year to contest it," Judy said seriously. "And I'd come after you for child support." "You want that risk? Screw that." "Maybe I should get snipped," Mark said. "Julie doesn't want more kids, and I don't want to give up the hot sex with you." "Snipped or not, you can have the 403, Judy said, ending the conversation. That conversation might not be admissible in court because one party has to know they're being recorded, but I didn't care. I needed proof Judy was cheating. She tried to make me the bad guy, claiming the affair was my imagination or just a one-time thing. These 3 weeks of gathering evidence really dampened my love for her. Once I knew for sure, I started the process to get rid of her. First, I paid off all our debts. My student loans were significant, but I paid them off first. We were careful with credit card debt, our cars were paid off, and we had some savings for a house. I also started stashing cash. I knew I'd have to pay alimony since Judy didn't make much from real estate. I paid my lawyer up front to decrease our cash. I trimmed our cash reserves and had my paycheck diverted, but I knew I'd still have to give Judy her half. I just didn't want her taking more. I hired an attorney and got the papers ready. Once she was served, the crap would hit the fan. Back to that day. I was supposed to be out of town but had a coworker cover for me so I could handle personal issues. I considered various scenarios. At first, I thought I'd act surprised to find them in bed, maybe run Mark off at weapon point or hit him with a tire iron, but that would mean jail time. All my friends knew I had a concealed carry permit and often carried a pistol when I traveled. I knew I couldn't fight Mark. I'm an LBS. Mark is at least. And LBS, always bragging about his college football weight. That fight like a man stuff is nonsense. David used a slingshot against Goliath, and I wish I were as smart as David. My plans vanished when I unlocked my apartment door. Mark's car was next to Judy's. I quietly entered, not jingling my keys. Their grunting drowned out any noise. "Do me, pound me," Judy's words hit me hard. She was bent over the couch as Mark jackhammered her. I thought about kicking him, but his legs were too close. I punched him in the side, knocking him off her. "You witch! You creep!" he yelled, realizing what happened. Mark quickly grabbed me by my suit coat. I tried to punch him and reach my pistol, but my coat was restrictive. He shook me violently. My kicks barely affected him. Judy turned and grabbed my right arm, preventing me from drawing my weapon. Her nails gouged my arm, causing the 3 furrows. Mark half lifted me, charged across the living room, and threw me out the door. I flew down the stairs, hearing a crunch as I hit the ground. Listening to the cops, I quickly formulated a plan. I moaned loudly, signaling I was awake. The doctor checked me out, concluding I was basically intact but should limit movement. The cops asked for my story. I told them almost everything, including how I caught Mark and Judy in the act. I added that Mark threatened to eliminate me and called me a loser. Judy urged him to act quickly, knowing I had a weapon. Mark threw me down the stairs, and that's all I remembered. I didn't feel bad about lying. Screw both of them. I hoped there was no contrary evidence. Forensics supported my story. Mark claimed he defended himself against my attack. He said he was visiting Judy because she felt bad, and I misunderstood. Judy said Mark pushed me hard, and she grabbed my arm to stop me from striking him, causing the scratches. Investigators found Mark's semen on my pants, proving proximity. Smears of semen and vaginal fluid on my right leg showed I kicked him in the groin. I was facing him, not running. Mark wasn't charged with attempted felony but with assault. He posted bail, costing him $5,000. I wondered if he thought it was worth it. I wouldn't know the full story for a while. My brothers didn't tell me everything until the doctor said I was out of danger, to keep me calm. Shortly after giving my statement to the cops, I passed out. To me, it felt like no time had passed when I woke up in a dim room, thinking about my conversation with the cops. I decided how I'd respond to Judy and Mark if I saw them again. They were cheaters who wanted me dead, and I'd treat them accordingly. Just before passing out, I had planned to shoot Mark if he ever approached me. I'd claim I thought he was coming to finish the job. A nurse was in the room, and then I saw Judy. I yelled, "Get her out! She tried to eliminate me! Get her out!" My brother rushed in. Judy, shocked and crying, protested, "I didn't hurt you. I love you." "You helped him throw me down the stairs," I yelled. They ushered Judy out, still protesting. I did want to talk to her, to hear her explain why she sought rough lovemaking elsewhere instead of talking to me. If she wanted rough roleplay, I would have been happy to oblige, but I couldn't condone her cheating. The doctors kept me in the hospital for a week due to my concussion, fearing brain swelling. My brothers visited regularly and camped out in my room the first couple of days. They could barely believe what I said about Judy. I whispered to John. I exaggerated her role in trying to eliminate me. John looked puzzled. "Why would you do that?" "I can always back off later," I said. "For now, I want her to suffer. She cheated and destroyed our marriage. Tell Dave I'm paranoid about recording, so I won't say more here." John chuckled. "You're really something." The day I got out of the hospital, I told John how I bugged Judy's phone. "Tell her I'm hurt and angry, but we'll talk when I'm ready." John grinned. "Give her a little hope like she gave you before crushing it." I was angry but still loved her, which made it hurt more. Julie, Mark's wife, visited me the day after I woke up. She had heard parts of what happened. When charges are filed, the details aren't publicized. Julie sat down, concerned. "Why was Mark arrested for assaulting you?" Mark had told her the same lie he told the police. He was visiting Judy, and I jumped to conclusions, leading to a scuffle where I fell down the stairs. He claimed innocence, unaware of the video or forensic evidence. I wondered if he was delusional or hoping the neighbors wouldn't be questioned. They were having sex when I walked in. I told Julie. Julie nodded. "Mark said you claim he was having an affair, but it was innocent. I'm not buying that. Do you have proof?" I asked. Julie sighed. "I have a prenup. I get 70% of the communal assets if he cheated, and I can prove it. I plan to sue him after his criminal trial. Contact an attorney and file for divorce to lock your assets so he can't use them for his defense. I have an audio recording of their affair, text copies, and a video of them unclothed on the landing after he threw me down the stairs. My clothes might have evidence too," I said. Julie looked shocked. "You have all that?" I nodded. I knew Mark liked rough lovemaking, and that convinced her. "I have everything." Julie stood up, determined. I'm going to see my lawyer. Please help me get the rest of that evidence as soon as you can. I assured her I will. Julie, Mark, and Judy have no idea how much evidence there is against them. They're sticking to their lie, telling the cops I overreacted. Mark's probably doing damage control, maybe even hiding money, but you can get that back. Hopefully, what he forfeits to the bondsman comes out of his share. Julie hugged me and wished me well before leaving. I had met her at Mark's parties. She was nice and didn't deserve the mess coming her way. Neither did I. The day after leaving the hospital, I was at my family's fishing camp, planning to take medical leave and use my vacation time. My boss knew the situation and was finding a way for me to work remotely as I recuperated and still got paid. I thought about how I turned their cheating into a crime. I had been pushed down the stairs, not due to my own clumsiness. Mark might have just wanted to get his pants on without getting shot, but I didn't care. I wanted to go for his jugular. That morning, I canceled our credit card, leaving Judy her half of the balance, which wasn't much. I waited to avoid tipping my hand too early. Now I wouldn't provide a penny for Judy until the court ordered me to. Rent and utilities were paid, but she'd get nothing more. Julie moved swiftly, taking her of the available cash and locking their investment accounts. I wanted answers. I called Judy and told her where I was. She had begged my brothers to let her talk to me while I was in the hospital. I told her to come alone. If she brought Mark, I'd assume he was coming after me and act accordingly. I wanted that on record to deter another attack. It was a tearful meeting. I loved Judy, but not as much as before. She loved me, but not enough to stay loyal. I'm glad you let me come to talk, she said, parking. You know I wasn't helping Mark try to eliminate you, she began. I shrugged and invited her inside, claiming I felt weak and asked her to get us drinks. She knew the house well. While she got beers from the fridge, I set up video recordings focused on the chair where she'd sit. I'm wondering if you're trying to get me to say something on a recording, I started. She assured me she wasn't. My phone is in my purse, she said, then stripped unclothed to prove she had nothing on her. Want to do a cavity search? She teased, moving her hips. She was smiling, thinking this was a kinky game. I might have been interested if she hadn't been screwing her boss. You might want to get dressed while we talk, I said. Screw that, she replied. I'll stay unclothed. Give me a towel so I don't leave a snail trail on the chair. Are you sure you don't want to check if I have a recorder hidden? She asked, grinning. Please take your time feeling around. She wasn't being sarcastic. She genuinely wanted to play. She knew the effect she had on me and was playing me. She had an agenda. Where do you want to start? She asked. Let's start with why you cheated, but why you helped that fool try to eliminate me, I spat, trying to control myself. I wasn't trying to help him, Judy said tearfully. I was trying to protect myself. I had no idea he'd push you. I wanted to stop you from shooting him. Even when he pushed you outside, I thought he'd just close the door so we could get dressed and deal with it, but then he threw me down the stairs. I finished. She nodded, looking horrified and guilty. I was afraid you were dead. He pushed you so hard you flew into the air. When I saw you lying there not moving, I was terrified. You didn't even check on me. The police said Cheryl from next door was kneeling by me while you stood on the landing in a robe crying, I said. You went inside. Mark got dressed and you made up a story about me misunderstanding the situation and attacking him. No mention of catching you two having sex. I didn't describe it that way, Judy paused. How do you know what we said? The cops interrogated me. They heard two people tell one story, and I told another with a head injury. They wanted to make sure I didn't misinterpret things. They charged Mark with assault, not attempted felony. Why did you lie for him? I was scared, Judy said. Mark told me if you had a head injury, you might not remember anything. We made up a quick story. Mark thought he could get away with it. You were willing to go that far, too. Cover for him? I asked. He said he'd make it up to me if the truth came out. He'd lose everything and we'd both go to jail, Judy sobbed. If you survived, it would be your word against ours. We had to keep up the lie, even after we knew you'd be okay. Mark kept saying maybe you'd have amnesia. Do you remember everything? I asked. You're worried about his prenup with his wife, aren't you? I already told her what I saw. She needs proof to invoke it. Your word isn't enough, Judy said. Mark asked me to tell you he'd pay you $50,000, 25, 0,000 each. If you change your story about pushing you and us having sex, we can use it for counseling. I'll quit my job and we can get back together. I hadn't expected this nonsense. I spat. Do you think I cover for him? Plus his wife would find out if he moved that kind of money. He can't buy a candy bar without her knowing. He's been hiding money in an offshore account for years, Judy said. He's been putting money in a royal bank account in Grand Cayman under his oldest son's name. He'll give us some if you change your story, please, Robert. We can have a nest egg and get back to where we were. Mark means nothing to me. You are what I want. I want a family with you, she pleaded. I chuckled. Do you see the holes in your story? Even if I lie and say I was confused, do you think Mark would pay us? He'd laugh at how he fooled me again. He made me a loser, and now I'd be a dumb loser changing my story. He'd never confess to you about hiding money. He knows you're gullible and hopes I am too. If it were true, he'd keep it secret. Judy looked thoughtful, then shook her head. I'm sure we can trust him, she said. Before I consider anything, I need to see the bank transfer, including routing and account numbers proving the account exists. Then I might consider letting him go for. Okay, now for part 2, I said. Why did you let that guy in your pants in the first place? What did I do to deserve that? Not man enough for you anymore? She teared up slightly. How long have you known? When did you find out? I shook my head silently. You did nothing wrong. We had a great marriage and an active sex life, at least until you got sick with that stomach bug and cut me off. Oh crap, that's when you found out, she said tearfully. She sat casually, not bothering to cover up. Now she looked embarrassed and reached for her clothes. Okay, I said, breaking the silence. When did it begin? About 3 months ago. At first, we didn't even have sex. I'm not sure why I started. We had no problems. Mark flirted a lot, but I didn't take it seriously. One day, he said he was unhappy with his sex life at home. Like a fool, I listened. He missed the wild, rough lovemaking he used to have. That night, I jumped your bones. We had amazing lovemaking, but I didn't tell you why. I've thought about that night a lot. The memory of it almost makes me climax. Judy paused, watching me. I stayed silent, clenching my fists. She continued. I wanted that high again, a carnal high. That weekend we screwed like rabbits. The next week, Mark and I talked. I told him about our wild weekend. He hinted he could give me that any time. I laughed, but eventually, I wanted to see if he could. I craved that hard-pounding lovemaking. Finally, I let him try to get me off. That was my downfall. Mark doesn't make love, he screws like a demon. I didn't kiss him or do anything else, I just let him have me. It was hot, I was like, independent, Judy admitted tearfully. I loved you, but with him I could disassociate from reality. It was something I couldn't do with someone I loved. Remember that evening when you got a text about how fine you looked and how Mark wanted to drill you? I asked. Judy nodded. You covered neatly. If you had stopped seeing him, I might have never known. She bristled and said, I hate that word. But you like the idea. You love cheating on me because you kept doing it despite the risk, I said. She shook her head in denial. Well, I hope you have fun with him, I said quietly. Get dressed and leave, our time is up. She looked shocked. Can't you claim me, make me yours again? She pleaded. Bend me over and do me hard until I cry and beg you to stop. Just please don't send me away. I handed her the discarded pants. There's nothing to reclaim, you gave yourself to him, I said without another word. She put on her pants, picked up her shoes and purse and walked outside. She paused, hoping I'd call her back. I'm so sorry, Robert, she said before getting into her car and driving away. I turned off the recordings and made copies, sending the files to the cloud for safekeeping. I called Sergeant Burson. This is Robert LeBlanc. I have a video you might find interesting. While making video copies, my phone alerted me to Judy's call. I'm just driving home from meeting Robert, she said. His memory is perfect. He remembers every detail. I'm glad you didn't come. He might have shot you. Recording the conversation was a bad idea. He called me on it. I stripped unclothed to show I wasn't wired. He's that pissed. I even begged him to take me to bed. What a fool, Mark scoffed. He's a full loser, too chicken for even revenge sex. Good thing he has no proof we're screwing. His claims are worthless. We're screwing, corrected Judy. Yeah, we have to cool it. My wife might be watching me. She needs proof for the prenup. If I can get a split and no alimony, I'd keep the brokerage. I could still earn a living. I can't support myself if Robert divorces me, Judy said, even with alimony. I hope he gets over it. I'll do anything, counseling, a chastity belt, post-nuptial agreement. Why bother with a loser, Mark scoffed. I'll send sales your way to keep you afloat, but we need to keep it quiet. No sex for now, at least until I clear the assault charge. What did he say about taking the money? He said no way, he might go. For $100K, but he'd need to see the transfer first. He believes you're lying about the account and wouldn't pay anyway, Judy said. Well, he's probably right. If he contradicted his statement and asked for money, I might spit in his hand, Mark laughed. Maybe give him $25 up front, then accuse him of blackmail if he asked for more. $100K, I could have him liquidated for less. If you say that again, I'll confess to the cops myself, Judy said. I'll make a video confession and give it to others for safekeeping. If Robert so much as gets dizzy and falls, I'll turn you in. Hey Mark, backpedal. I was just spouting off, I'd never do that. I don't think Judy believed him. I was on my toes. I recorded that conversation too. Sergeant Burson came to the camp since it was nearby. I wondered if Mark really had a secret account, but why would he tell anyone? Maybe he revealed it to Judy without thinking, just like he talked about having me liquidated. Burson was impressed with the video of my conversation with Judy, although he didn't comment on her appearance. He took it to the associate district attorney handling the case. This is icing on the cake. We got the forensic results. You had semen spatters on your pants and a smear of semen and vaginal secretions on your leg. We'll compare it with their DNA before the trial. We also found matching spatters on the sofa and carpet, even a few toward the door. It supports your story. We might upgrade the charges against Mark to attempted felony. Judy might be charged too. Your skin and blood were under her fingernails, so she definitely grabbed you. Her claim she was stopping you from pulling your pistol could be used either way. I asked if I had the right to defend myself. Burson explained. A good lawyer can spin things. Mark didn't strike you, but he's a big man who could have. He'll deny saying he'd eliminate you. It comes down to the jury. Since you didn't shoot him, it doesn't matter much, but don't be surprised if his lawyer tries something wild. That evening, my father-in-law called. He heard I'd been hurt but was released from the hospital. We were on a cruise, just got back and turned on our phones. We had messages saying you fell, might die, then that you'd be okay, and finally that you were discharged. Are you okay, Bill? Those messages don't tell the whole story, I replied. I liked him and his wife. I didn't fall, I was pushed. Judy's boss tried to eliminate me. I caught them having sex in my living room. It's a mess. He was shocked. I heard him tell my mother-in-law, who wailed, "You need to talk with Judy and hear her side." I sighed. I'm not at home. We hung up. I called my attorney the next morning to check on the divorce paperwork. Papers were ready. They just needed to know where Judy was. The process server had checked the real estate office and my apartment but found her at neither place. Burson called to say they arrested Mark and Judy at work. He took the audio and video files to the assistant district attorney, who filed all the charges. The assistant DA wanted to see me. Burson went with me and cautioned me about talking about the bribe to change my story. It could be construed that you were willing if the price was right, he said. I assured him Mark didn't have enough money to buy me off. I wanted the bank information to pass to Julie Danvers. I already called her, and she's having her lawyer look into it. He had me write a statement to that effect. It's to leave the investigating to others. We can't use illegally obtained information. It's called fruit of the poisonous tree, but your video is legal because you're in it. Mark was charged with attempted felony. Judy was charged as an accomplice. The DA didn't think assault charges would stick against her, but didn't want her to get off scot-free. With accomplice charges, she could get a $500 fine and up to 5 years in jail. I thought that was ridiculous. Burson laughed. The law is screwy sometimes. Danvers will likely go down. The DA suggested being lenient on Judy if she testifies against Mark. That seemed like all the satisfaction I'd get. At least Judy wouldn't get off completely. I hated what she did, but didn't want her to be burned too badly. I called my lawyer to tell him where she was. She would be served when released. My brother John came with me to retrieve the rest of my clothes from the apartment. I only wanted my clothes, my desktop computer, and a few pistols I had locked in the safe. Everything else would remind me too much of Judy and the short life we built together. We were nearly done packing the last items when Sandy, Judy's mother, drove up. We were stacking boxes on the landing. She hugged me tightly. I can't believe my daughter would throw away what she had for a little fling, she tearfully lamented. Do you think there's any way you could work through this? Before I could respond, she continued. I'm not talking about forgiving her right away. I mean after a lot of counseling. Just before Bill and I left on our cruise, Judy mentioned you guys were going to start trying for a baby. We were so excited about that. I looked at Rachel, Judy's year-old sister, who had come with their mother to get some of Judy's things. She was shaking her head. I can't tell you how much this tears me up. I confessed, I have video and audio that show just how bad it was. Judy doesn't know I have any of it. Both she and her boyfriend think it's my word against theirs. You have proof? Sandy asked, surprised. Judy made it seem like the affair was just a little fling. She regretted it, but you were totally unforgiving. This wasn't a little fling, it went on for months. What I have is damning, I said. Some of it is pretty bad. Nudity, bad language, the works. I don't think you should see it. Screw that, Robert, Sandy said firmly. I'm a big girl. You always were polite and avoided cursing in front of Bill and me. I probably use worse language than you, and I know what unclothed people having sex look like, so does Bill. I want to see and hear everything you have. I'm guessing from your demeanor that the files will show my daughter as a complete tramp. It's bad, isn't it? I nodded. I didn't want Judy to claim I was just an unforgiving idiot over a little indiscretion that went south quickly. It's bad. I really don't want to hurt you, I said. I told you I want to see what you have, Sandy insisted. Cheating pisses me off. I don't care if it was you or Judy. I had plenty of chances to screw around on Bill over the years. Some of the offers were tempting, but I never did. I agreed to give her the audio portion of my meeting with Judy and the other audio files. Judy is going to need your support, I said. She's in for a tough legal battle. Sandy nodded. We'll support her, but that doesn't mean we'll condone what she did, Sandy said. I told them I was moving out and Judy could stay, but Sandy said Judy would live with them for now, at Rachel's insistence. She went to pack some of Judy's clothes. Damn, this is some crap, Rachel said. I agreed. You only know part of it. I was when you and Judy got together. I was dating a guy on the football team, not having sex, just going out. Mom made a big deal about how Judy hit the jackpot. She found a great guy who would stick by her forever, like Dad. You weren't big and handsome, but decent looking and hot in your own way. Someone a girl could count on to love her, smart and loyal. I laughed. You're making me sound like a border collie. A hole, Rachel said, grinning. You know what I mean. I got to know you. I envied my sister. I dated guys looking for someone like you, never found one. Rachel hugged me. I'm just going to say it. If my sister is so dumb she'd give you up, I want you. I've loved you for a long time. I just want you to know I'm here. I didn't know how to react. I hugged Rachel and told her I appreciated her love. She smiled and kissed me, giving me a heart-on. All three women in Judy's family had that effect on me. I told Rachel Judy didn't have to move out of the apartment. I would be living at my family's fish camp outside of town. Rachel shook her head. Mama's pissed. Judy screwed up a good thing. She wants her back at home to tell her how she messed up and to keep an eye on her. I offered for Judy to live with me, but Mom shut that down, Rachel said. I'm just graduating and Mom doesn't want me settled with Judy. She says I need to live my own life and deal with my own decisions. She repeated that 100 times on the way over. John began carrying my things to the car. The doctor had warned me about strenuous activity, so John was doing all the heavy work. My cast didn't help either. I have your phone number. I know where your fish camp is. Get ready for me, Rachel said with a grin. She leaned forward and whispered. She hoped I might be ready for some exertion soon. Hey there, I heard from behind me. It was Cheryl, the woman from across the landing. I see you're up and about. Then she noticed the boxes on the landing. I hope you aren't trying to carry any of those. You know you're not supposed to lift anything. You had a pretty bad concussion. How did you know how bad I was hurt and what my doctor's orders were? I asked. I want to thank you for helping me when I got hurt. I heard you were right there checking me out. Cheryl tugged at the name tag on her scrub top. I work in critical care right around the corner from where you were. I mainly do cardiac instead of neuro. Greta, the nurse taking care of you, was my roommate in nursing school. I kept tabs on you, she said. The doctor said I only had a little swelling. Yeah, that's like saying you had a little heart attack or a little pregnant, Cheryl laughed. I looked at your chart and we nurses share information on the unit. You had a significant injury. You need to take it easy. Just because they say today's, my advice is to make that a minimum. I knew she was a nurse, but not the details. Judy and I had invited her over a few times. She had shared snippets of her personal life. I liked her. I told her my brother was doing all the carrying and loading. I was only packing my clothes. I thanked her again for saving my life. She snorted. I was scared, to be honest. I don't do neuro, but I was trained. I was afraid you had broken your neck. Cervical breaks can stop respiration. If you quit breathing, I'd have a hell of a time doing CPR in the position you were in. I just loosened your tie and opened the top of your shirt, checking your eyes upside down like that was helping your cranial pressure. But I couldn't do anything to help that. I had nothing to stabilize your neck, so moving you was out of the question. I was glad you didn't start to wake up and move around, but the ambulance arrived pretty quickly. Do you still have the video you took? I asked. She said her mother had taken all the pictures and videos, but she had copies. She asked for my phone number so she could forward them. I watched the video. Rachel looked at it as well. Well, there's no doubt what they were doing. Judy is going to freak out when I tell her about seeing her freshly drilled look. Rachel giggled. Cheryl said, I'm guessing you are Judy's sister. You look like her. We stood there for a minute, then Cheryl gave me a hug, whispering in my ear, You have my number now. Call me when you want to talk to someone out loud, she said. Take care of yourself, Robert. Do everything slow and easy, no exertion. She turned and went to her apartment. I wasn't sure if she put a little extra wiggle in her step, or if it was just my imagination. John was amused as we drove away. Your mother-in-law would jump your bones in a heartbeat if she were single. She is one classy lady, but loves her husband and won't cheat. I looked over at him. Judy's sister wants you too. Now she'll jump. Into your bed quick. All you got to do is let her. I shook my head. Plus that neighbor, the nurse, she wants you too. You think I wasn't listening? Yeah, kinda messed up, but you have options, little brother, he laughed. Halfway to the fish camp, I wanted the divorce to be as easy as possible. I wanted to get it done quickly. I had my lawyer offer Judy that I would pay half her rent and utilities if she stayed in the apartment alone. I'd even pay half her grocery bill as long as it was food bought for her alone and not takeout or at a restaurant. I'd even keep her on my cell phone plan. I offered this support for 2 years, saying she could use that time to get on her feet. Judy's lawyer quickly computed this was far more in her favor than the percentage of my income the law specified. I knew he told her how restrictive it would be, but she accepted my terms and signed. Of course, Judy had bigger things to worry about than our impending divorce. She had been accused of being an accomplice after the fact for helping Mark attempt felony. She was released on her own recognizance. She hadn't been charged the first time, only questioned. Mark Danvers did not fare so well. The charge of attempted felony called for another bail to be set and a percentage paid. Mark only had a little cash available. Julie had taken her 70% of their cash and sealed their investment accounts. He couldn't touch any of that money. He didn't have the $100,000 to pay the bondsman fee. His lawyer was trying to get him a signature loan apparently. Having the community assets locked in a divorce made it difficult to use as collateral. I laughed, imagining him stewing in a jail cell. Mark considered himself a mover and a shaker. Now he was being moved and shaken. Julie was as vindictive as me. I had told her about the alleged secret account in the Caribbean under her son's name. She said she would check it out. To my surprise, the secret account really did exist. Julie's lawyer confirmed it, so she, Julie, and her son flew down to get the money. Her son wasn't on the signature card, but because it was in his name, he could transfer the funds. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall when Mark found out his hidden money was gone. Because it was in his son's name, it wasn't part of the community property. To make things worse for poor Mark, he would soon be facing problems with the IRS. He did not follow proper procedure for gifting minors. However it worked out, and whoever paid the taxes, Mark would never get a penny. I loved it. Julie told me later her son split the money evenly with his 2 siblings, funding their college accounts as well. The Danvers boys were at least honest with each other. Justice is slow. My divorce with Judy was finalized months before her criminal trial. Her trial was linked with Mark's as she was accused of helping him hide his role in my attack. Julie had assured his resources were limited. He still had his of their community assets, but it wasn't much. His real estate agents were ready to quit because of his ruined reputation. Julie got Mark to agree to sign off and sell the franchise. She could have forced the issue, but his signing expedited things. As part of the agreement, he gave up the right to start another brokerage within 50 miles for 5 years. I loved it. He needed the money for his defense, so he agreed. While we waited for the criminal trial, I propositioned Julie for a little roll in the hay. Her initial response was to call me a sick mother. Then a few seconds later, she grinned and said, "You really want to stick it to them, don't you?" We laughed about staging a fake video. But then she said if she did anything at all, she'd go for the whole enchilada. In the end, we decided against it. The week before he was to get the money to make bail, she visited him. I went with her. We talked through a plexiglass window. He asked why I was there, and Julie said, "Because I deserve to be." She winked at Mark and grinned. I held my index and middle finger over my mouth and flicked my tongue. Then suddenly, I pushed my index finger through the circle made by my other index finger and thumb. Mark glared and turned red. He paused for a few seconds before reacting. I thought he'd get angry, but I was astonished by his actions. He went apecrap. I found out later there are many rules when in lockup. One of the main ones is about losing one's temper. Mark picked up his chair and swung it repeatedly against the plexiglass window. He was immediately and painfully subdued. I heard later he was put into segregation for 3 weeks. His bail got delayed and was almost denied altogether because he now posed a threat to both Julie and me. He really should learn to control his temper. At his trial, he spent half his time glaring at me instead of following the testimony. He should never have taken the stand, not after I claimed he wanted to eliminate me. Having called me a loser repeatedly, when asked if he threatened to eliminate me, he said, "I don't remember saying it at first, but right now, I'd make sure of it." Then he began to rant, calling me a lying chicken, a loser, and a few other things that cast aspersions on my father's identity and my mother's species. I have to admit I had deliberately antagonized the man a bit, careful not to be seen. I had just repeated the gestures of pushing one index finger into a circle made by the other index finger and thumb. I had held my index and middle finger in a V and flicked my tongue between them just a few seconds before. I did it subtly so nobody else noticed. The man was now livid, despite being carefully reserved a few minutes before. His lawyer looked stricken. The forensics bore out the fact he had indeed attacked me and moved me some feet to the top of the stairs where he threw me to my pass-away. Now saying he would eliminate me if he could did not help his case. Mark's lawyer was fairly good. The lawyer tried to convince the jury Mark was justifiably upset, as his only real crime was having sex with a married woman and defending himself from an angry husband with a weapon. Mark had lost his career, his marriage, and his freedom. He had been stricken a few times in jail. His present state of mind was influenced by PTSD, so his actions should be forgiven. The lawyer managed to cast enough doubt. Mark only got sentenced to 10 years in jail rather than a possible 15, even after he got angry at me in court. Judy was called back to the stand to repeat her testimony. She never heard Mark threaten to eliminate me in the apartment, but on cross-examination by the DA, she admitted he had said he might hire somebody to eliminate me. She was very upset at Mark's violent rant in the courtroom. She had said earlier that it was Mark who had originally concocted the story of how he was merely visiting her and I overreacted, then ran. When Mark stood up to confront me, she admitted the fall was not accidental, but a very deliberate action on Mark's part. At her own trial, she repeated that testimony, saying she was terrified at the time and thought I was dead. She agreed to support Mark's lie. She was sentenced to a year in the parish jail, but the DA suggested it be suspended. The judge disagreed and wanted her to serve 3 months, at least, considering her original false statement to the police. Judy came to see me when she got out. She wanted to apologize for cheating on me. We had not talked in private since the day we talked at the fish camp. I also want to thank you for not spreading the video you took when we talked, she said. It was bad enough you gave Mom the audio portion. I was a strumpet to strip and beg like that, but I wanted to be your strumpet. Mom gave me a little crap about that, but she really read me the riot act for cheating on you and destroying our marriage. It was bad enough just knowing what I did, but she saw the video Cheryl's mom took. She told me if you weren't such a gentleman, you'd have let everybody see me unclothed and freshly screwed, disgracing the whole family. I knew she would. Is there any way we can get back together? I was hoping with counseling or a post-nup. Well, it would be a prenup now. I shook my head. A prenup didn't stop Mark. I got stupid. I should have talked to you. Can we stay friends? I mean, we'll need to if you date my sister. Rachel told me she wants to get with you someday. I told her I had written that off as well. Judy left after wishing me well and hoping I would forgive her someday. While I liked Rachel and the whole family, there was no way it would work. It would only cause friction in the family eventually, and although I was still hurt by her disrespect, I did not want her family to suffer. I wondered how Mark was handling life in jail. I laughed at the thought, betting he got into a fight or two. I'm trying to find out how he's doing, Julie said. She's going to visit him with her boys since 2 are under 18, she has to go along. She wants to ask him if he's giving head to fellow inmates when the boys can't hear. I did hear about Mark a few months later. He was moved to a new unit after being in segregation. I didn't know what he did, but they apparently did not like his attitude. He was found unconscious in a corner of the shower room, obviously kicked repeatedly in the groin. Most of his toiletries were shoved up his rectum, a full bar of soap followed by his toothbrush and toothpaste. Once those were removed, it was clear he had been sodomized first. I sent him a smiley face greeting card saying, "If you think I paid someone to do it, well, you are absolutely right." Throughout my court hearings, I made some friends who had connections in the jail administration. They knew people behind bars who really needed cigarette money. Although she called me several times trying to change my mind, I never did date Rachel, Judy's sister. She argued her parents thought it wouldn't be a problem, and Judy was on board with us getting together, but I knew it would eventually cause friction. I broke off all contact, though I occasionally saw one of them around town. Judy moved to Shreveport and got a job as a sales rep for a small manufacturing company. I imagine a woman as attractive as her had an active sex life. I also had an active sex life with Cheryl. Cheryl and I dated, and then she moved in with me. A year later, we got married and decided to have a baby right away. Good communication is crucial for us, and she shares my views on fidelity. I know I'll have to be careful someday when Mark gets out of prison. I have hope he gets shivved. Maybe I need to spend some more cigarette money. Okay, I'm still a bit of a prick, but only to those who try to hurt me.